They tell you that experience is something that happens to you. It is a series of events that you just must endure, accumulate, and then they are going to become your armor for life. Their voice is steady, their tone superior, and they seem to speak with the weight of all of history behind them. I too wanted to change the world. I too dreamed foolish dreams, but life taught me otherwise. You'll understand in time. You'll be humbled as I have. Their words are a final judgment. They don't just dismiss your dreams or frame them as an inevitable failure. They discard dreaming itself. It's as if your desire to change anything at all, could only ever end as theirs did. Their words are, you're wasting your time. Their words are, you'll understand when you're older. But really what they're saying is, I can't bear to see you dreaming. It reminds me of the dreams that I abandoned. But I think we can pull down this mask and take a look at what's really underneath. Is it wisdom, the resignation, and how exactly are we supposed to respond to this unasked for prophecy? By acquiescing, fighting, ignoring it? Walter Benjamin calls this the mask of experience, and it's not just one that they wear. They try to slip it over your face too. It is expressionless, impenetrable, and ever the same. Like some timeless relic, this heirloom handed down through countless cautious voices, the purpose of which is no longer known. It is an obsession with what has already happened, and it paralyzes the very creativity we need to forge new paths. That is the function of experience, to smother and end your potential under the heavy heel of a borrowed past. But by looking under this whisper of that's not how we do things, let me save you the trouble, we can start to explore what trouble. That's the part they never explain, right? The trouble is everything that you might become. Here's the problem. We can't interrogate the mask of experience directly, right? It doesn't think, it doesn't explain. It would be like interrogating a virus. It's this inert pattern that survived precisely because it convinces each new generation to reproduce it. You'll be humbled as I have is never true insight. It is a passing on of a wound. And they don't just offer you this wound, right? They ask you to pass it on to the generation behind you forever. This so-called adult experience, it always comes dressed in the same shrug of defeat. It is an easy surrender to the way things are, a capitulation to the commonness that so many learn to accept without question. But you don't have to wear that mask. You don't even need to break it. You can do something much more radical. And if you can lift it and look underneath, you will see their experience for what it is. Not a universal law, a story that they have told themselves and now you about why it is their life turned out the way it did. When we think about a mask, it doesn't just hide a face, right? It erases a singular identity. It merges all uniqueness underneath a static and often imaginary lived experience. But it hides something deeper than that, right? It hides something that is buried so deeply that its very existence may have been forgotten. It's their spirit, or the place it once occupied. It is the seed of all possibility that they have learned to abandon. While I obviously don't think we can accept the inertia of old systems, I also don't think we are obligated to reinvent them. It is us as individuals, as singular individuals, that must be the locus of action. Yes, this wound is pain, but pain can also be a lens. We might think of it as an opening to becoming, a doorway to something unimaginable in previous frameworks. And whether we act out of love, rage, detachment, I think matters a lot less than the fact that we take action, that we see through the wound rather than attempting to paper over it with accumulated debris. If we ignore it, all our creative effort, I think, is spilled pointlessly. But if we use it to shape how we stand in this world, then we give ourselves at least a chance to retrieve that spirit. Not as some relic of youth that we hold on to like an heirloom, but as a living spark of possibility in ourselves. Not something performative for the sake of others, something life-affirming for our own inscribed values. The wound, for all its pain, does carry a kind of magic. Samuel Delany, in his novel Dahlgren, one of my favorite books, calls it a shield, a gift. It is inscribed with two truths. On one side, it says, be true to yourself, that you may be true to your work. And on the other side, be true to your work, that you may be true to yourself. At first, the possession of the shield feels reassuring. It seems to reflect us back to ourselves. We often become entranced by our own view, or so disgusted that we just discard it. But if we use it, as we carry it, the silvering that gives it its mirrory quality, it seems to start wearing off. And slowly, very slowly, it stops being a mirror. It stops being a way of just reflecting ourselves back to us. And it becomes a lens. It becomes a way to see the world, to distort the world in our own unique vision. Delany writes, the transition period is almost always embarrassing, however. While you're still being dazzled with bits of your own reflection, you have begun to suspect that it might, after all, be one-way glass, with a better view afforded from out there. Still, once used to it, you find the view more interesting. While wounded, we are sensitive. We are so sensitive to the world and to ourselves, and we're forced to confront everything around us that we would rather ignore, that we would rather pretend doesn't exist. It makes us look closely, examine the cracks in the narrative that we have been told, and to look at parts of the world that we'd rather look away from. I think with this comes, unfortunately, a great internal task. It is to determine for you what your values will be, and how ever in the world are you going to find the courage to not defend them. I think it would be all too easy to fight back, to tear at the mask and yell, you are wrong, life can be better than this, right? It must be, there has to be something beautiful we can make. But again, that's their story, and it doesn't have to be yours. The way forward isn't locked in opposition. It's found in multiplicity, in complexity, in creation, and even in contradiction and confusion. Creation, the act of being in creating, is how we transform that lens, this wound, into something vital. It's how we take what hurts us and turn it into something that has the possibility of not just healing us, but also the world around us. Genuine action, which I think is our highest human capacity, it comes from stepping into the unpredictable, into the spontaneous, in creating something new. We aren't just producing art or ideas. We are the canvas of our work. We are remaking ourselves and how we appear in the world. The process isn't automatic. And I think it requires the real courage, not just to see through the pain and to let it guide us toward creation instead of despair, but also genuinely risking other people disliking us and the decisions we make, the things we make, how we carry ourselves in the world. In a previous video, I turned my life into a video game that you can play, and this video is the first in a series of videos called Extending Walter Benjamin, which is the result of people playing that game and voting on the next video I would make. If you'd like, you can check it out on my Patreon, where I'll also mail you zines, post behind-the-scenes videos, hold 12-hour study sessions, and read one-star reviews of philosophical works like Being in Time. Apparently Heidegger's problem is he's just not a good enough writer. The adult, they see this wound as an endpoint, if they see it at all. It is a justification for their own withdrawal from life. Life is meaningless, they say, because I have suffered, is the part they don't. But I don't think suffering is the enemy of meaning. It is the source of it often. The wound doesn't just close us off from the world. It is an opportunity to connect. Creation is its own mode of being. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It might begin just with listening to a very tiny voice inside, a call to explore irrational urges, and that these may possibly lead to not new truths, not new forms, but for you, new values. Yet, from those dead epics, we can salvage raw material for building something new inside of us. Our highest responsibility in life, I think, isn't to follow the inherited values and morality of our time as well as we can, or even to oppose them outright. It is to create our own. In Nietzsche's view, and this is one I'm very sympathetic to, virtues are less a law for others and more like a bird we've found that has built a nest underneath our roof. And because it has chosen that roof, we care for it and we love it ever so privately. I don't think of experience as passive or static. Experience is something very much alive. It is something you do. It is not a scrapbook of memories to cling to. It is a call. It is a command. Experience. I think we should engage, we should reach out, and we should create meaning where we are not finding any. And I think the hard truth is it very well might be painful, hard, and transformative in ways that we just can't anticipate. I know it's been that way for me. But the alternative is clear. It is giving up completely your own agency in life. It is kneeling before inherited wisdom, the received hand-me-down morality, and living to receive praise from others around us, to not be disliked, anything but that. But in that mode, our anxieties are never quieted, and we'll have given all control completely over to circumstance and to other people and their opinions and outcomes and judgments. And that's too much for me. I'm not good at that. And I imagine other people aren't good at that either. Delaney says in Dahlgren, you begin to suspect as you gaze through this U-shaped hole of insight and fire that though it is the most important thing that you own, it has not shielded you from anything terribly important. The only consolation is that one could have thrown it away at any time, and one didn't. One chose to endure.